Okay, ladies and gents, so you wanted more videos from the car. I'm just leaving work. Now, if you can't tell already, today was football day at work. And I was leaving the office with a great deal of optimism around Jamie Elliott's name. And then I opened up Twitter and I see a tweet from, it may have been Tom Morris, don't quote me. It was someone in the media world who is typically reporting on these cases. We are hearing that Gold Coast have officially lodged a 3-year contract offer, and they've tabled that to Jamie Elliott. Now, why is this concerning? Simply because we heard a few days ago that Gold Coast were waiting to hear from Jamie Elliott as to whether he would consider a contract. So basically, Gold Coast, we're saying if Jamie Elliott says jump, we'll say how high. So that immediately brings a level of concern to my mind going into this grand final weekend, thinking we are not budging on our contract offer that we have presented to Jamie, and Jamie will not accept that offer. What does that mean? Well, it sounds like we're not going to budge either way for Jamie Elliott or Myercheck to ensure that they're keeping a hand on the future, which is concerning. I do understand it. Does that suggest that we could be looking at not a rebuild, but a slight decline next year or for the next couple of years, and then we rebound? Maybe that's the way we're potentially leaning to. Sorry, I'm not working anymore. I'm also in a Toyota Echo right now. My Mercedes is still at my Mercedes C180. Come on, she's old school, but she's going well. She's still at the Mercedes. So here I am, bottom of the barrel in my Toyota Echo, and we're talking about Jamie Elliott leaving. But when you lose 100 goals from your team in one season, being Myercheck and Jamie Elliott, that's going to be difficult to replace. McStay's not going to kick you 60, let alone 40. Will Hayes is not ready. Harvey Harrison needs time to bounce back from his ACL. Saxoner, who potentially comes through from the draft, isn't going to be, we don't even know if he's going to be on the list, full stop. So it's just not ideal and not the news I wanted to hear going into this long weekend. We've heard in times gone by that Jamie Elliott does have an interest moving away from the Melbourne bubble, that is, and pursue that Joe Danaher lifestyle. He wanted to go, did he not tour Brisbane facilities a few years ago? At the very least, there were rumours around Jamie Elliott considering that move. Well, Gold Coast is the next best, isn't it? And probably to a lesser degree or even more, and it definitely fits the mold of a relaxing, not a relaxing lifestyle, but it allows you to move away from the Melbourne bubble. You play for Brisbane, they're still a big team because they have a Melbourne backing through Fitzroy. Gold Coast would be this perfect fit. And if you want to play devil's advocate from a Collingwood's fan perspective, I'm sure most teams would make a case that Gold Coast are just entering their Premiership window and have a very good list, whereas we, as the Pies, are, we'd have to, if we had to take an educated guess, we're towards the back end of this current Premiership window without indicating that we're going to completely bottom out. I think that's never the intention of a club, to bottom out and be at the bottom of the table for X amount of years. Like a North Melbourne, like Essendon to a certain degree as well, where, yeah, I'm pretty bullish on giving Jamie Elliott what he deserves. So the offer from Gold Coast would be 3 years at 500 plus incentives, which would probably trigger or tick it over to 600. I was asking the question, can we give him 3 years and add incentives, or 2 years at incentives? But it might be that the writing is on the wall. This conversation or contract discussion has been stalled for the large part of the second half of the year, which isn't uncommon. But you'd like to think that if a player is staying and they're happy with the current offer, then that offer would have been taken up on much earlier than where we're at right now. So it points to me and says Collingwood aren't budging. Jamie Elliott is willing to move if it doesn't change, and that hasn't changed. So, look, it's just that type. You've actually heard in the media over the last week or so, Collingwood need to make bold changes to their list. I just didn't think it would get to this point where we're potentially talking about losing Jamie Elliott and Brody Myercheck. It seemed like with Checkers, the writing was on the wall when he was crying after the prelim loss. His poor performances over the last couple of months. But just on the other hand, like with Jamie Elliott, the way he kicked 8 goals in 2 critical final series games, he couldn't have had bigger games in both of those games. He kicked 4 goals in a game where we were good as a side, and he kicked 4 goals when we weren't going well as a side. So that just speaks to the level of Jamie Elliott's tenacity and talent and consistency when you just find a way to always impact the game. And usually you accept as a baseline pressure, but his baseline for the most part seems to be, I'll give you pressure, but I'll also kick goals even if we're losing. And that's the 60 goals we're talking about. Like, can we really talk about Jamie Elliott's age and what if he gets injured? Like that's definitely in the deck of cards that could play out. But he just played in a season where he played 25 games, which is most games, if not all. Maybe he missed 1 game. I can't even remember. So judging by that, who's to say he's going to have a steep decline? If you were a betting man, you would bet that Jamie Elliott's going to continue in this way for at least another year, maybe 2, maybe 3. Look at Jack Gunston. Look at Scott Pendlebury, some would say. How do we all feel about this? I mean, look, as I said, and this will always be the preface, no player is bigger than one club. But when you think of the players we're losing already and where we are in this position, the depths in this position that Elliott occupies, where he's so versatile and plays much taller than his size, there's simply no one that can replace Jamie Elliott. And I'm not saying we're going to replace him, but it would be naive to assume that we can find someone who performs to 50% of the level that Jamie Elliott has offered over the last few years. Forget the 60 goals. I could care less. Look at his last few years before that. He gives you 30 and he still gives you everything else. Pressure, tackles. What else can we ask for? Anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comment section, ladies and gentlemen. And as always, go Pies.